The biggest little show in the West had its beginning in July of 1917. A tradition grew and prospered in a natural prairie setting. Rain postponed but couldn't wash out the Hand Hills Stampede. The 74th annual show was held a week later than planned in persistent wet weather, but at least the infield wasn't underwater, as it had been 7 days earlier. Hand Hills is the last rodeo of its kind, a one-day show that goes all day. It's been said even in the 40-day flood, the Hand Hills only received 2/10. The nearby lake was dry last fall, but there are no Dust Bowl conditions this year. The water table has risen sharply. The countryside is lush and green. It was just too sloppy for a good show on June 13th. Overnight rains made it impossible to go on with the rodeo. The Hand Hills Club postponed the Stampede 1 week, hoping for better conditions. Meantime, the rain should produce plenty of good bud barley. The fans packed it up and went home on this day, but they'd be back 7 days later for the 74th annual Hand Hills Rodeo. The show begins early at Canada's oldest consecutively run rodeo, 9 a.m. slack. And again, it would be difficult to keep the gear dry. The first event of the day, bareback riding, where the rider is judged on his ability to make spur contact with the animal, the horse judged on its ability to buck and kick. These Kessler boys are going to be good bareback riders. Dennis drew Silverado from the Stampede string, and the judges marked him a 72. Behind the chutes, Dad was watching and likes what he saw. 72 for Dennis Kessler of Nanton. A local product from the Hannah Hand Hills country, Craig Nill drew the Stampede horse Nerd and would go one better than Dennis Kessler. Marked Craig Nill a 73 for this ride. Good spur contact. The Nill family, prominent in rodeo and hockey. And Craig goes to the lead, at least temporarily, in the bareback event. He's followed by another local product from Wardlow. Just 40 miles from the site of the rodeo, Bruce Pearson, whose older brother, Brad, could only manage a 70 in the slack earlier in the day. Brad, for several years, has been a pro cowboy and Canadian finals qualifier, but Bruce is going to be a good one. He's in his first year of pro competition and flashes a lot of spur, as you see in this ride. The judges liked it. They mark him 76, and we've got a new leader. Following Bruce Pearson, an Australian, Troy Dunn, two-event man. He competes in bareback and bull riding, and he's got the Stampede's yo-yo. Troy Dunn, we'll see him later in the bull riding. They mark him a 73, and he steps off without getting the shafts dirty. It's not easy on this day. Just 15 minutes from his Hannah home, Dave Shields. Out next on the Stampede's Slow Rolly. Dave and his son Davey both won the boys steer riding event in previous years at the Hand Hills Stampede. After Slow Rolly runs off with him for a time, Dave finally got to spring, did a good job, too. They mark him 76. That ties him for the lead with Bruce Pearson of Wardlow. Meantime, back under the chutes, the bareback riders were trying to keep their equipment out of the rain. Robin Burwash knows all about that.
You know, you just got to come here with the attitude that you're going to get wet, and there isn't anything you can do about it, so you just come and gas it, and you only have to ride good for 8 seconds anyways. And as long as you can keep your equipment dry, you should stay on top of them, and everything should be fine.
Robin Burwash coming off an unbelievable year in '89, won about $158,000 all told. He had Fred Flintstone and just about had a three-way tie after this ride, but he falls a point short. They score him 75, one behind the co-leaders, Dave Shields and Bruce Pearson. Burwash with the 75.
He has truly done it all, and there's a superstar for you, Robin Burwash.
The first Canadian Finals rodeo qualifier out of Manitoba is Don McLeod from Brandon. He's got the Stampede horse Symphony. Needs a 76 to at least tie for the lead, 77 to take the lead. Pretty good spur contact for the Manitoba bareback rider, but not quite enough. 72 points won't do it. So the co-winners in Bareback, Bruce Pearson and Dave Shields. Student and teacher, Bruce used to attend Dave's Bareback school. Pearson has noticed a big step as he moved from novice to the pros this year.
Oh yeah, you gotta make sure you really take advantage of when you get your good horses. You don't dare stub a toe or you don't place. Whereas in the novice, you could get away with mistakes and still win money, but not up here.
Well, you obviously drew pretty well today.
Yeah, I had a really good horse today. He was stouting around to the left. You couldn't ask for any better horse for here. He was really good.
All told, you're pretty pleased with your first pro year?
Yeah, I'm really pleased. I was down south all winter, and I paid for my winter and paid for all my expenses, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I just won a rodeo.
Is it intimidating at all for a young fellow to go to those big winter indoor shows?
Well, for me it wasn't, because I was, like you say, I was around the novice bareback ranks, and I knew all of them guys. For some other kids it might be hard because they don't know all them people, but for me it wasn't. It's a big step, but not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Catch him with the long one, tie him with the short one. It sounds easy, but isn't. Calf roping is next. It wasn't an ideal day for the calf ropers. Wind and rain left ropes wet and hands cold. First to go is Wade Popescu from Glentworth, Saskatchewan. Object, of course, is to cross and tie any three legs just as quickly as you can. It's a race against time. And considering the conditions, Popescu didn't do a bad job here. Pig and string on a front leg, the back two up there, and he's got it done in 12 and 9. That will no doubt be bettered. Next to go is Serge Lachapelle from Coaldale, Alberta. He also went in the morning slack. Nods his head, gets his calf, times it just right, no problem with the barrier. The catch is made, he hustles down that rope, goes to the flank, pig and string on a front foot. It's the back feet up there, and again, just about the same time, slightly faster, 3/10 of a second better than Popescu, 12 and 6 for Lachapelle. And he's into the lead, another local product from the Hanna area, Doug Betker. And by the time Doug came out, the rain was falling. It didn't help matters any. He has to wrestle his calf a little while, but gets it done eventually in a time of 13 and 1. And you can see the rain falling on the infield at Hand Hills. 13 and 1 for Betker. The time to beat 12 and 6. One of several Australians competing in Canada, Bernie Smythe, now resides at Crossfield, Alberta, has won 5 all-around titles in his native Australia. Had a rope horse shipped over from Australia, and the horse is obviously working well for him. He completes the tie in 9 and 8, competing in 3 events here, calf roping, steer wrestling, and bareback. 9 and 8 for Smythe, good enough for the calf roping championship. He's followed by Serge Lachapelle. Smythe is quite comfortable in this rural one-day show.
This is very similar to a rodeo back in Australia. This is something that I feel quite at home at, because our rodeos kind of go all day over home, most of them do, the majority. Whereas here you have your performance rodeos a lot more than a rodeo like this. This is more of a kind of a family days outing type of deal.
Kind of a community event, and there is a lot of that at home, is there?
Well, in Australia, like this, the town community get together, and it's a day to meet everyone because you haven't seen them for so long, and they sit around and eat and drink beer and visit and so forth.
Well, this little wrangler hasn't seen too many Hand Hills Stampedes, but he'll likely be competing in one before too long. The Saddle Bronc event. First to go is Jim Lowry from Winfield, Alberta. He's got Sour Whiskey, a batch of boys in the Lowry family, and all good hands at that. Riding in the rain, Jim Lowry. Saddle Bronc, good repetition on the spur stroke from in front of the horse's shoulders to the cantle of the saddle. The judges mark him a 76, pretty good standard for the others to shoot for. 76 for Jim Lowry on Sour Whiskey. Pickup men working the show, Gary and Wade Rempel and Bruce Llewellyn. Wayne Powell of Calgary has the horse Stampede Spirit. Stampede Spirit went down and rolled almost on top of Powell. You'll see the other cowboys around the chutes move in quickly to roll the horse back off him, but not before he gets kicked a couple of times. But these cowboys are tough. There he takes a couple of shots, but Horse and rider both okay. And Wayne bounces right back, gets a re-ride horse, Caesar, and we'll see what he can do. Judging from the ride, he wasn't hurt badly. Difficult horse to ride right off the top, but he gets the spur contact working. And they mark him 76. Wayne Powell moving up into a tie for the lead at the moment with Jim Lowry, both marked 76. Winston Bruce looking at some new horses as well as the proven Stampede stock. And Clayton Hines, twice a Canadian champion, is the next to go. The Drayton Valley Cowboy has Stingy Pay. Needs a 76 to move into a tie for the lead. Gets the spur contact working pretty well. Twice a Canadian champion. It gets a little Wild West at the end of the ride as Stingy Pay rears up on him. Roy Rogers and Trigger never did any better than that. While he was in the chute waiting to go, Jack McDonald, the arena director, tried to hurry him along. He said, "Don't be nervous, Clayton." Clayton said, "It's a nervous business." But he's down in the mud, and he's okay, and they mark him 76 for the ride. Three-way tie for the lead now, Lowry, Powell, and Clayton Hines. The sun was shining after supper by the time T.J. Buse of Longview came out on Campfire. Good ride, too, as 77 put him into the lead. Buse wins Saddle Bronc, followed by Lowry, Powell, and Hines. A 77 and 3 76s. Eric Hodgson was honored at Hand Hills this year, a true working cowboy. He remembers the first Hand Hills Stampede.
Used to have a quarter section here for arena at one time, you know.
They'd buck all day.
Yeah, that's right.
You wouldn't want to be a pickup man under those circumstances.
Oh, I don't know. They used to get them just as quick as they do now, you know.
Yeah. Did you draw a lot of fans in those early days?
Oh, yeah. They used to have tremendous crowds here. You know. They'd come here and spend 2 or 3 days camping, you know. There'd be tents every place you looked around here.
Well, it was nice that they recognized you this year. Yeah. If the stock has changed, I suppose the Cowboys have all changed too, or changed in many ways.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole new breed of cats here, you know.
A ranch raised in those days, now they're college bred.
Yeah, I guess that's what you call them, yeah.
And the purses have certainly changed a lot.
Oh, yeah. You know, I won the calf roping here one year. I think I got $7.50 for first prize, you know.
But it would take you quite a ways then.
Yeah, but I paid $5 entry fee, I think.
So he cleared the grand sum of $2.50. Only 6 years of age at the time, Eric still remembers the first Hand Hills Stampede. The ladies barrel racing now. Again, a race against the clock. First to go, Lonnie Wilson from Newcastle, Wyoming. A barrel racer a long way from home. She goes 1 to the right, 2 to the left, and comes home in a time of 16:08. Remember, there's a 5-second penalty for any overturned barrel. 16:08. Lonnie Wilson setting the standard for the barrel racers. Also out in the morning slack, which was a little better for running conditions, a little bit drier, Charlotte Schmidt from Cutbank, Montana. She cuts it a little wide on the final barrel. Otherwise, might have been quicker. They try to shave that final barrel, all of them for that matter, as tightly as they can. 16 and 17, and right behind Lonnie Wilson.
Melanie Hoffer from Spring Coulee, Alberta.
Next to go is Melanie Hofer from Spring Coulee, trying to be 16:08 or better. These girls spend a lot of time and money working with these barrel horses. Again, 1 to the right, couple to the left. Looks good so far. And she really shaves this final barrel and heads it home. In a time of 16 and 20, not quite good enough. Lonnie Wilson holds the lead at 16:08. Trish Brown is from Calgary and has had good luck over the years with her barrel horse, Cody. She's not only a former Canadian finals qualifier, but qualified on one occasion for the national finals rodeo. Good barrel racer, and hoping to beat 16:08. She ran in the afternoon, and the arena was a little bit slower. You see her horse slip a little bit there. She does it in 16 and 30, so our winner is Lonnie Wilson from Newcastle, Wyoming. 16:08, followed by Charlotte Schmidt and Melanie Hofer. Next out, the 14 and under crowd in boys steer riding. We'll be right back. Looking forward to working our Calgary Stampede coverage with Dave Polson in just a few days. Dave, it's a big jump, I guess, in many ways, from the Hand Hills Lake Stampede to the Calgary Stampede, but there is something special about this show and about working it, I'm sure you've found.
Oh, it truly is. It's unique, and it's an awful lot of fun. You know, first of all, it is the longest running, consecutive running Stampede in all of Alberta, enjoying its 74th year this year, 75th anniversary next year. But you come out here, and the place is dotted with old-timers. People have been coming here for 50 or 60 years, and it's just a heck of a lot of fun. Tradition is really the word that applies to the Hand Hills Stampede.
Fun for you, too, I'm sure, as a rodeo announcer, because you can take a little more relaxed approach and have fun with the people.
I'll tell you what, it's nothing if not casual out here at Hand Hills Lake. We've been having a lot of fun all day long, and yes, it's a very relaxed kind of atmosphere. It is also one of the only rodeos in the world, Russ, and I know you're going to want to take advantage of this, free coffee. And they've been doing that for years, and that's another tradition at Hand Hills Stampede. All day long, free coffee. It's great.
I've already taken advantage of it. Thanks for your time, Dave. We'll see you in Calgary.
Good talking to you, Russ.
We move on to the boys steer riding, the 14 and under crowd, the future bull riders. And the young fellows we see today are all hanging right up there at the top of the Canadian standings. Kelly Armstrong from Water Valley, Alberta. They mark him a 70. Good ride for Kelly Armstrong, former qualifier for the Canadian finals. That'll give the rest of the boys something to shoot for. A 70 for Armstrong. Denny Golden is from Mayerthorpe, Alberta. Watch him go to the spurring here. They can help themselves a little bit. Judges look for the kids to sit up there with the toes turned out. He went to spurring, and then he went into the fence. But he shakes it off. And they mark him a 72. Denny Golden from Mayerthorpe going to the lead in the boys steer riding. Got crunched there. He was more mad than hurt, I think. Bounces right back up. He's okay. Next out is Sean Supernan from Olds. And he works the spurs a little bit, too. They're not required to use their feet, but they can help the mark a little bit if they do. Hang on with both hands. They mark him a 71. That's just one short of the leader. Next out is Austin Beasley from Dutchess, Alberta. And riding with one hand, that's an option they have. Riding with one hand like the pros, Beasley scores a 72 here. That's good for a 1-2 split with Denny Golden. Golden, Armstrong, and Beasley stand 1, 2, 3 in the Canadian boys steer riding standings. And here at Hand Hills, this is how it went. The co-winners, Beasley and Golden, and then Supernant with 71 points, Armstrong with 70.
Course associated with the Hand Hills Stampede.
And still with the novice events. We go to novice saddle bronc. This, the 21 and under crowd. Ken Scott from Sundre, Alberta, has Western Heritage. They mark him a 58. Scott leading the novice saddle bronc riders. The same rules apply as in the pro saddle bronc event. These fellows are just a little younger, 21 and under. But they'll be pros in a matter of a year or two. Mike Stanton from Spruce View, Alberta, has the horse a sign-off. Gets a pretty good spur contact going, and they mark him 65. Mike Stanton of Spruce View, taking the novice saddle bronc event with a 65. He's followed by Ken Scott from Sundre, and Terry Wood of Oyen was in third with a 55. To the steer wrestling event, Les Deschamps of Airdrie, the first to go, and in the morning slack got it done in a hurry to 4 and 1. It would get still better in the slack performance. Tom Barr from Cowley nods for his steer. His hazer keeps the animal running straight and true, and Barr got it done. The twist is on 3 and 5. That's an excellent time anytime you get down in that 3+ range. The Roy family has been prominent over the years in the steer wrestling event. Darby Roy is in the Canadian top 10, and here he is, the Swift Current Dogger, trying to beat 3-5. He got close. He matches Deschamps 4-1. So now we've got Barr at 3-5, Deschamps and Darby Roy both 4 and 1. Big Frank Thompson from Black Diamond shooting for 3-5 or better, and he gave it a good run, too. This is a mismatch. The steer didn't have a hope. 3 and 9 for Thompson, but that still puts him second to Tom Barr, who wins the steer wrestling with a time of 3-5. Thompson right there, 3-9, then a couple of 4-1s. Sitting at the top of the Canadian steer wrestling standings, Thompson waited a long time to turn pro and wonders if he should have done it earlier.
I think about it once in a while, but I had my priorities set, and it took me this long to get ready financially to take my pro card, so I'm fairly happy with it.
I guess it proves one thing again, too, Frank, that if you are pretty good at this game, whatever event you're in, if you do it well as an amateur, you can do it well as a pro.
Oh, yeah, I've competed against almost all these fellas on the amateur level and was competitive with them, and I definitely wasn't intimidated when I came here because I know I've competed against all these guys, and it's worked out well this year.
We'll take a final break and be back with the bulls. Some of the best bull riders in the country come out of that Medicine Hat area, and one of the latest is Dan Mazie. He's drawn the Stampede's Dramatic. The Calgary Exhibition and Stampede got in the bucking bull business seriously a couple of years back, and they're trying out some of their 2-year-olds here. Mazie stays on Dramatic, but a spectator was bucked off his chair as the bull went into the fence and scared him a little bit. Mazie got a re-ride and marked his 70 on Cyril Sneer. 70-point ride for Mazie. And it brings out Ace Northcott from Caroline. He's had lots of practice on those bulls that his dad owns. Northcott this time with the Stampede's Happy Hoofer. The bull comes around to the right. Northcott stays in there for a 70. Co-leaders at this point. Mazie and Northcott both with 70. And the fans who braved the weather conditions enjoyed what they saw. At Hand Hills, Ellie Scory from Kinsella, Alberta, drew the Wilf Gurlitz bull no way, but he found a way. He just made the horn. Scory stayed up there just long enough for the judges to award him a 74. And a new leader. That's T.J. Baird taking refuge up on the fence, the bullfighting clown. Australian Troy Dunn was out earlier in the bareback event, and he comes back with Stan Weatherly's solid gold in the bull riding. Pretty good 8-second ride, too. The judges mark him 74. He equals Scory's mark, and they are co-winners of the bull riding event. Ellie Scory and Troy Dunn both with 74, Northcott and Mazie 70s. It took a week longer than planned to stage the 74th Hand Hills event, but with the 75th anniversary coming up, they weren't about to cancel it.
Somehow we'd have held it, yeah, this year. We couldn't call it off altogether, just a postponement.
Which brings up the big one next year, 75 years. Special plans, I'm sure?
Yeah, we've got a committee, been working on it now for, about 5 months. Nothing's really settled, but they've got things in the works. We're going to try to do it up big.
Before the afternoon was out, the 74th Hand Hills Lake Stampede was bathed in sunshine. With a little luck, it'll shine on the 75th anniversary show in June of '91. Mark that date on your calendar. It'll be the biggest and best yet. The Hand Hills, home to buffalo herds and native hunters long before the arrival of cowboys and farmers. Stockmen and homesteaders poured into the area in the early 1900s, eager to begin a promising new life in this land of opportunity. But before their hopes and dreams reached fruition, they would endure considerable hardship, devastating prairie fires in summer and cruel winters. They were hardy individuals, these prairie pioneers. They had to be to survive. Leather tough and iron-willed, they forged a new life in the frontier West. They made their own entertainment, developing an enviable record for community spirit. Hand Hills Lake Stampede, celebrating 75 years, had its beginning in July of 1917 on the Jack Miller Ranch near the present-day Stampede grounds. The biggest little show in the West, long on tradition, grew and prospered in a natural prairie setting. Like life itself at the time, the Hand Hills Stampede was built and based on hard work and a vision.
You came here from England. Was it quite a culture shock for you to come out here in the middle of the bald-headed prairies?
Well, I think we were young enough so we could take the shock, but my mom, I don't know how she took it, because there was just a 3-room little shack that they moved into.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had a big room built on the first year, and she had to put a stove in each end of it to keep it warm.
Yeah, some of the winters must have been tough enough.
Oh, they were. They were very seldom a winter without 30 before 40 below. And like when Mr. Peacock came over one day and told us it was 60 below, that was pretty cold.
97-year-old Ed Bell helped organize and was a contestant in that first event 75 years ago. Even in those early years of the show, he remembers signs of the approaching mechanical era.
They had a slow car race. Car could go around the slowest in high gear with the front wheel, or if a wheel hit one of those filled-in badger holes, it'd stall the motor, you know. It was pretty exciting. Of course, it's the first one, anything like that in this whole country, you know. So there's a pretty big crowd. They sold 3,200 tickets.
What about the cowboys then and now? Do you think the cowboys, the contestants then, were as good as the young guys today?
Oh, I'll tell you, these young guys are pretty tough. They go for 8 seconds. But I don't think you could find one of them that could take a horse out, one of these horses, and go out and do anything with him. Somebody runs him in the chute, puts the saddle on him. The guy goes to Rodeo College, and I tell you, they're pretty good riders. They're pretty tough.
Back in those times, you needed more than 8 seconds.
Well, you go just till you wore him out, till he's ready to quit and go to work. And if he got set off 2 or 3 times a day, you get on him in the morning and maybe ride all day.
Levi Kennedy remembers mosquitoes as big as hawks, almost.
I remember one thing I mostly remember in 1925 when I competed here. We left hand about midnight to be here for the morning. The mosquitoes are so goddamn thick they nearly ate us up. Gee, me and old Sornberg. Yeah.
Tough on man and animal.
And yes. God, the mosquitoes were thick.
What kind of money would you make at the rodeo if you won?
Oh, around $10, $15 maybe.
Yeah. But it would take you quite a ways in those days.
Oh yes, $10 are worth a lot then. They were.
What do you think about all the changes? Have they been for the better?
Well, what I think of it, I don't like it at all.
You don't?
Not the way they run the world today.
They've made quite a mess of it, haven't they?
Yeah, they sure as hell have.
Hand Hills has a proud past, and there's always talk of the good old days, but those who treasure the past would only go back to a point.
Well, not too far back, because we had a little trouble holding the stock in here.
Yeah.
We got a lot more pens now. The big change here is the metal chutes, which I was against really, but on account of keeping this an old-time rodeo. A lot of Americans come up here and go, what did you do with your chutes, you know, right away. I could understand how they feel about it.
Just tradition, and there is so much tradition here, and again, that's much of the appeal, I think, isn't it?
I would think so. It's not many shows you have out in the country anymore. And the horses are a little different than they used to be. We used to have some pretty salty wild horses, and they weren't tried like now. You know pretty well ahead of the show what's going to happen, but then you sure didn't. There's always something going on the racetrack, too. And every once in a while, one of these horses jump out over there and go along with them, you know. That added to the fun.
That's right. There were a few unscheduled happenings.
Oh, yes, and that's what the people liked. And them wild, crazy, wild horses bucking, they sure loved that.
A true working cowboy, Eric Hodgson remembers the first Hand Hills Stampede and the cowboy legends who are part of the history here.
Like Pete Knight, he was an exception, you know. But I don't think he was a heck of a lot better than Kenny McLean and a few more of rough stock guys, you know.
That's another thing about Hand Hills. It's always attracted the top names, even though it's only a one-day show. There's something in the name of this place, I think, isn't there?
Yeah, well, they put 2 days into one here. And, you've probably noticed that.
But that's part of the attraction, too,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Oh, yeah, they get the money's worth. You talk to the old people, you know, that come here every year, and they say, where else can you go to see that much show, you know?
Hand Hills, there's magic in the name. The one-day show still draws North America's best rodeo cowboys.
You kind of feel like you should come here just because to hold up the tradition and support the, even though it's not a big rodeo, it's still, you know, one of the ones that originated the sport.
You're out in the hills here and by the lake there, and it's kind of like a country rodeo. People still park their vehicles around the infield, you know, and so it's kind of unique that way, and it's still got some old traditional ways to it, you know.
Clarence Wilson has seen the Hand Hills Stampede from the beginning.
People were really friends in the early days. You see, we'd come to the Stampede, and then they'd come to the supper break-off, and people, that would be in July, you see, not June. And people would have frying chicken ready, and there'd be lettuce and a few things out of the garden. They'd have salad, and they'd spread the blanket down, and all over these grounds. And it was a big arena at that time, you know. And all over these grounds, that's the way people visited. Now, they got mobile homes and trailers and stuff, and nobody sees one another.
In those early days, it was truly a wide-open West.
As I remember it, this arena was more like a quarter section. Horses could take a run for double the length of this one. And they had a rope tied across the gate tower. That was your pickup man. Yeah, when you run under there, you had to grab this damn rope. Some boys missed it, or at least they couldn't hold on and crash. There you go.
Wouldn't that be a pretty good way to hang yourself?
Oh, yes. Well, it's about like committing suicide. But most of them were real good ranch cowboys. There was no such thing as a rodeo hand because there was no schools. In fact, I think they use that word cowboy kind of loosely. Even today, I take my hat off. There's a million good rodeo hands, but there's goddamn few that could pack water for a cowboy.
Or do any fencing.
Yeah, or any ranch work. They wouldn't know which side of the horse to get on.
Well, these are called...
They don't have to, but they're good hands.
Yeah. Through 3/4 of a century, the Hand Hills Stampede has survived drought and depression, persevered to become the granddaddy of the one-day shows.
The stock didn't cost anything. Some of us would get together and gather up 50 head of horses and pull in here. Didn't give a damn whose horse they were or anything. Well, half the people didn't know how many horses they owned. Didn't bother branding or nothing. So the stock part was nothing. And then the committees worked for nothing. And I see on that bill in there, the admission was 75 cents.
And I bet you some people had trouble scraping that.
Why, sure. Anyway, they just survived because they were survivors through the country.
And if anything, there was more fun to be had in those times.
Oh, yes. Well, it was all fun. There was no money, but lots of fun.
And you wouldn't change a thing?
No, I wouldn't.
No regrets?
No, I just regret I wasn't born 25 years sooner. I would have probably never seen a fence or a plow.
And it would have suited you just fine.
I guess I'm safe. I don't see any sod ravagers with a club around here. But that's what I say, spoilt this country was when they ripped up too much of it and fenced it.
A lot of it blew into Saskatchewan then.
You bet. Well, I can remember in the 30s down around Hutton, they had two fences. first one got buried, so they just stuck another one on top. And it'll happen again if they're not careful.
The Hand Hills Stampede is more than a rodeo. In many ways, it's a throwback to the Old West, a colorful, sometimes rowdy era that had more than its share of characters and calamities.
Dale Flett got on the track first, and Johnny Minnick ran out onto the track to cheer him on. Come on, Dale, come on, Dale. And another team was coming around, Hank Willard's outfit, and the lead team split, and he hit the pole, and he dragged one of the wheel horses down, and the horse came out behind the chuck wagon, and so did Johnny. And they lived, survived, and the horse wasn't even hurt. Pretty all the kids that I was growing up with wanted to be cowboys, you know, and we came over here and they rode steers, and some of us rode bareback, and we'd ride with a loose rope. Well, it's hard to stay on a bareback horse with a loose rope, you know, so we had quite a time. But every kid seemed to want to take part in the stampede, and we did.
You can count on some heavy reminiscing at this 75th anniversary event.
They're going to have two dances, one in the old club and one in the new club. I like to dance. I'll be over at the old club and see if I can find any of my old girlfriends. Don't put that on TV now. My wife will kill me.
They were tough times, but they weren't without their good times, and the Stampede was the social event of the year.
It didn't take a lot to entertain us in those days. We were very easily. We enjoyed everything because we didn't go out as much as the people do nowadays. And we enjoyed every event we went to.
Frances Morton has been to every Stampede at Hand Hills since 1920. Frances and her sister, Loretta Peacock, were raised a few miles south of the Hand Hills Club.
The Indians used to come from Gleason, and where we lived, they went right by our house because they cut across the prairies. And we could hear them for miles. We knew they were coming. And they used to stop in and get cream and milk and eggs on their way up. Now, one year, I remember they handed out, I suppose, a $20 bill. Mother couldn't change it. So they said, well, we'll see you at the Stampede or pay you on our way back. And they were very honest. They paid us.
It would be the big outing of the year, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes, everything was. But we used to have dances here about every week in the winter. And
oftentimes
games.
on Sundays, the fellows would come down here and bucking. With the bucking horses then.
Sure, just for a little recreation.
Yes, and practice, I suppose.
We used to have the jitney dances, and they'd start the music, and you'd pay 10 cents to go and dance, and then when the dance was over, where they had a rope, and they'd just chase them back off again.
Bring on another crew.
Yeah, the next one year they had to pay 10 cents again. Wilf Carter came here a few years when he was just a small boy, and he used to sit on the running board of a car and sing away, and people would throw money to him.
In the early 1900s, Hand Hills Lake really was a lake.
We had a wonderful time because the lake came right up to just over the cut there. And then the pier went out. How far would that pier have gone out, Lauren? 50 feet or more?
Yeah.
And the boats, if there were boats on the lake, they could bring the boats up to the pier.
Kind of hard to do now.
There's just nothing there, right?
Volunteer workers have toiled behind the scenes at the show for years without ever seeing the infield events.
Odd first bucking horse out or something, I'll see odd one of them, and a calf rope when they can get out and watch, because sometimes they don't run the calves back here until later. and then we got to sort them when they come back.
How many men would it take? Do you have an idea of the workforce, all told, back in behind the chutes? Dozens, I suppose.
Well, there's 3 stripping here on this chute right back here. Then there's Grant, and if Jim is here, Grant and Jim are really good in this cutting chute here, if he's here all the time. But there's usually 3, and Keith Korsnick's back in here too, cutting, shooting them into the, but then in the saddling, I don't know how many works in there. There's quite a few of the flanking and stuff all the time.
And it's tough work too, isn't it? I mean, when it happens, you've got to go.
Oh yeah, they got to go. There's no fooling around.
People.
We don't pay anybody back here. Absolutely nobody. Everybody's volunteer. They even pay our ticket to get in too.
But there's a sense of satisfaction, I'm sure, each year when it's all done.
Oh yeah, always is for me anyway. Always is.
If the Hand Hills legacy is to be preserved, another generation must assume responsibility.
There's been talk of going to a 2-day show as one of the ideas that have been tossed around. This year with we're going to be having the slack the day before and the main show the next day, the Wednesday.
Here he comes.
It seems that it may spread our workload out a little bit to make it easier for people around here that have to work all day. We get pretty well 100% of the community working here, and you know, everybody has ideas. You just have to get them down here.
It has to be just about 100% involvement,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
because we're a fairly small community.
Yeah. Vern, everything in readiness for the 75th?
Well, we've got most of the plans underway. A little work to do yet, finishing things up, but all the major decisions, I think, are made, yeah.
Looks pretty good, eh? What's the attraction, do you think, with the Hand Hills show that it has lasted 75 years? I mean, a lot of bigger shows can't boast that. That's quite a record.
Oh, I think probably dedication by the community, volunteers and whatnot, and the tradition of being right out in the wide open spaces, I guess. And people keep coming back.
Fans get their dollars worth, don't
I
they?
think so, yeah, for sure.
From early morning until after dusk sometimes.
You bet, that's right. Starting on the 11th, the Tuesday 11th, our infield events, cutting horse competitions will start at 12 o'clock. There's 5 events in that category, and we hope to get the slack rolling at 3, and probably that'll run until chuck wagon time at 7. And then there'll be dances in the evening, an old time dance in the old club and a more so modern version in the new club.
Parade added too?
And Wednesday morning, there's 7 o'clock, there'll be a pancake breakfast. At 8 to 8:30, we've got outside entertainment. There's a church service at 8:30 for half an hour, and then we've got those square dances and skippers and to take us up to parade time at 10 o'clock, I think. And hopefully the parade will probably run for an hour, and folks will have a little chance to have a bite to eat, and the infield events will start at 1.
I would expect you'll get people back here that were part of this community many years ago. They'll probably come back from all parts of the country.
Oh, yes. We've had, I know the parade committee have had inquiries already from people that have been away for a long time, but they say they're going to attend this 75th.
Hand Hills celebrates a special occasion in 1991, the 75th anniversary. It will be a homecoming for many former residents and a day to remember for arena director Jack McDonald.
Oh, she's going to be a ring-ding show. And the wind ain't going to blow and the sun always shines.
In the Big Rock Candy Mountain.
Oh, gosh, you do remember that one.
If these chutes and corrals back here could talk, they'd tell some great stories, wouldn't they? Over the years.
They'd tell some dealies. Maybe some stories people wouldn't want to hear, but it'd still be good ones.
And some they might not believe, even.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
What are some of your fondest memories of the show?
Fondest memory of the show, and the one I prized most, was being able to go out in front of the chutes and run the show from out there.
And that started when?
In '67, I think it was. But the worst part of it all, Russ, is we're all getting older. And the young ones are not taking over.
Is it going to be tough to keep it going, keep it alive?
Well, I'd like myself to keep it going forever, but in time, with the help situation, unless the young ones help take over, well, it's going to make it pretty risky.
So anything else that you should be looking at before the time runs out?
Even with the work and worry, it's a tradition worth keeping alive, says the man who makes the infield go.
Well, it's like an old fella, well, he's in his 70s up here. And we used to come down here 3 weeks before a rodeo to get things ready, start getting things ready. And he went home one night and he said, wondered it was worth it. And he turned on the radio and they said on the radio, it was the granddaddy of them all. And he says, you know, he said, after I heard that, he said, it made me feel pretty good, he said, to be part of it. And that's the way I feel, is be a part of it.
Ask anybody here today and they'll tell you that the Calgary Stampede is world-renowned. It just doesn't get bigger or better than this. But it doesn't matter how big the rodeo is or how small. Rodeo is still rodeo.
Perhaps this Alberta stretch bears a resemblance to the middle of nowhere. Well, it is, practically. Near Hand Hills Lake, it's the site of a 75-year-old little rodeo with a big reputation.
It was one of the first ones, I guess, in 17. It's been going steady since. It was postponed twice, but it's never been canceled. So, I don't know. I guess the setting, people just keep coming back. They like the atmosphere. And we put on a good show. We have the top stock and top boys.
Besides drawing many top cowboys, Hand Hills serves as a proving ground for the youngsters. And the fans make use of some rather unusual vantage points. Rodeo Hand Hills style.
Here, we'll turn out more stock in our one-day rodeo than a lot of these other shows turn out in 3 days. And I don't know how you'd answer why the cowboys come, because it's only one-day show, but they've been real good to us. They keep coming.
It's a good old rodeo. Like, it's the 75th anniversary. My dad rode here when I was bronc riding here like 35 years ago or something. It's just a good old rodeo, and it's during the week.
Whenever you get Calgary Stampede stock at a rodeo, it's going to be a good rodeo. There's a lot of tradition around here, and you get to see a lot of the old cowboys and stuff around here, and just the money doesn't mean nothing here. You just come here and you want to ride because it's such just the tradition. That's a lot of what rodeo is tradition.
Years ago, the rodeos, it was working class. Now it's a lot of boys coming up through college, and that's the way it's going. It's college boys. And as far as old-time cowboys, they were cowhands off the range. And that's the way it went.
I'm the only living person that did help get the first stampedes going. Help with the, well, like I say, with the racetracks. And then I rode it the first stampede, and won second in the saddle bronc riding at the second stampede.
And how tough are today's cowboys according to the original stampeder?
They're all right for 8 seconds, some of them. Some of them don't last 8 seconds. Well, I wouldn't want to offend any of them, but they'd have, they couldn't halt or break a horse and lead him to water. I don't think any of them could. I've never met any of them that could anyway.
Hand Hills draws a great deal of success from its lengthy association with the Stampede Ranch, provider of world-class stock. It's a union that seems likely to continue.
I'm sure that that we've been involved, certainly not all of the 75 years, but I'll bet you we've been involved close to 50 of them. Cowboys have a feeling for the past, and our heritage means a lot to us, and we want to protect that, and we feel good that we can leave something for the children that are here today, and it's nice to be able to come to places like this or to rodeos anywhere and say, yes, this is part of our past, and we can protect something, and rodeo's doing that today.
That's so true, Winston, and thanks from all of us to the people at Hand Hills for showing us such a wonderful time up there. Well, you know, it's a saying in life.